The great hall of the council was alive with light and sound. Hundreds of alien leaders filled the vast chamber, their voices rising and falling like waves on a stormy sea. The walls glowed with shifting patterns of color, symbols of power and unity. Yet, despite the grand display, there was tension in the air, a silence beneath the noise, like a drumbeat waiting to strike. In the center of the chamber stood the speaker's platform. It was raised high above the floor, so that all species, from the smallest insectoid to the towering reptilians, could see the one who dared to stand there. Today, that place belonged to the supreme speaker of the council, a being older than most of the stars in the galaxy. His tall form shimmered in silver robes, his many eyes glinting with cold resolve. When he raised his hand, the hall fell silent. One by one the voices stopped. The shifting colors on the walls dimmed, until the room was cloaked in pale shadow. Every leader leaned forward. Every breath was held. The speaker's voice echoed like thunder. Today we decide the fate of humanity. Today we end the human threat forever. The words struck the chamber like a weapon. Some leaders cheered. Their voices rang with hatred and triumph. They had long feared the rise of humans, long whispered of their growing strength. To them, this was a day of justice, a day of victory before the war had even begun. But not everyone joined the cheer. In the shadows of the chamber, a few council members sat in silence, their faces tight with unease. They remembered stories of battles lost when humans should have been crushed, stories of colonies that resisted until the last breath, stories of soldiers who would not surrender even when all hope was gone. The speaker's voice rose again, cutting through the chamber. Humans are reckless. They are dangerous. They spread like fire, turning barren rocks into living worlds. They ignore the rules of the stars. They build weapons faster than we can track. And worst of all, his eyes swept across the room, they do not fear death. This makes them a threat greater than any other. The hall shook with agreement from many sides. Tall insectoid generals hissed their approval. Bird-like diplomats clicked their beaks in sharp rhythm. Massive reptilian warlords bared their fangs, eager for battle. Yet still the unease lingered. One counselor, a small amphibian leader with green skin and wide golden eyes, spoke from his seat. His voice trembled, but it carried through the hall. Supreme Speaker, I must ask, have we forgotten how quickly humans adapt? Every war against them ends differently than expected. Every trap we set, they escape. Every weakness we exploit, they turn into strength. What if this war destroys us instead? The chamber erupted with shouts and laughter. Nonsense, cried one warlord. They are weak apes from a single planet, shouted another. Their ships are small, their armies divided. But the amphibian leader did not move. His wide eyes stared at the speaker, waiting for an answer. The supreme speaker raised his head, his voice calm, cold, final. You worry too much. Yes, they adapt. Yes, they fight. But humans are still young. They are still fragile. Against the full power of the council, they are nothing. We will crush them before they can rise higher. A deep silence followed his words. For a moment the hall was still, and in that stillness some felt the weight of destiny pressing down. Then with a single gesture, the speaker ignited the great banners around the chamber. They blazed with the sigil of war, a burning star crossed by a blade of fire. The decision was made. The council had declared war on humanity. Thunderous applause shook the chamber. The sound was like a storm breaking over a helpless world. Generals roared their approval. Diplomats raised their voices in chants. The future had been chosen. But in the silence behind the storm, a whisper stirred. One quiet counselor, nearly hidden in the shadows, leaned close to another and spoke in a voice only barely heard. They think this will be their triumph. But this may be the seed of their own destruction. The words vanished into the roar of celebration, drowned by pride and arrogance. None of the cheering leaders wanted to hear them. None of them wanted to imagine that their mighty fleets could ever be defeated. Yet far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, humanity continued to live, work, and dream. They did not yet know that the most powerful empire in the galaxy had declared war upon them. They did not yet know that their very survival was about to be tested. But if the council had looked deeper into the human story, they might have seen the truth. They might have remembered how many empires had underestimated mankind before. They might have understood why humans inspired such fear, and perhaps then they would have hesitated. Perhaps then they would have chosen peace, but they did not. The Council had chosen war, and in doing so, they had unknowingly signed their own death sentence. The chamber roared once more as the speaker raised his arms high. His voice carried above all others. This war will be swift. This war will be final. The age of humanity ends now. But outside the chamber, in the vast darkness of space, the stars seemed to burn brighter, as though warning the galaxy of what was to come. For humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak, and when pushed to the edge, humanity would show the Council a truth they could never forget. A storm was coming. The Council's declaration spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every world under their control heard the same message. Humanity was now the enemy. Armies prepared, fleets were assembled, and war factories lit the skies of alien planets. The leaders spoke with pride, promising an easy victory. But beneath the surface, hidden in quiet conversations and secret memories, there was fear. Not of human numbers, not of human technology, but of something far more dangerous, the human spirit. In the lower chambers of the council hall, a meeting was held in private. The voices there were hushed, cautious, as though speaking too loudly might summon the very humans they discussed. "Do you remember the Battle of Rhaegar Prime?" asked a thin avian diplomat, his wings trembling. 5,000 of our soldiers against only 200 humans. By every calculation, they should have fallen in minutes. But they held their ground for 3 days. 3 days. And when they finally lost, they destroyed the city rather than surrender. "Who fights like that?" A reptilian general hissed in agreement. His scales glinted under the chamber's dim lights. "They fight like creatures with nothing to lose. They adapt faster than any species I have ever seen. Their weapons are simple but effective. Their minds are clever, and their will. Their will is frightening." Another counselor, a small insectoid with shining black eyes, leaned forward. "You speak as though they are gods. They are only primates from one planet. Why should we fear them?" The reptilian's voice lowered. "Because they do not fear us." The room fell silent. That was the truth they all knew, but rarely spoke aloud. Other species bent the knee to the council. Other species accepted their place, obeyed their rules, surrendered when outmatched. But not humans. Never humans. There were whispers of entire colonies that refused to bow, even when surrounded. Stories of soldiers who kept fighting long after their bodies should have failed. Tales of engineers who turned broken wreckage into deadly weapons. And darker rumors, too, of psychological tricks humans used, planting fear inside the minds of their enemies until battles were lost before they began. One elder remembered another war. His voice was soft, but every syllable carried weight. "On the frontier world of Kareth, I watched them fight. We destroyed their defenses in hours. We thought it was over, but that night, they came back, not with armies, not with ships, with small groups, shadows. They moved through our camps, taking our weapons, turning them against us. By the time dawn came, an entire battalion had fallen, to less than 50 human soldiers. They fight like predators, patient and merciless." The avian diplomat's feathers rustled in unease. "And yet the Council believes this war will be swift. They believe humans are weak. But we who have seen them, we know the truth. Humans are never weak. They only look weak until it is too late." Across the galaxy, ordinary citizens had their own opinions. Some celebrated the Council's decision, believing humanity to be a nuisance that needed to be destroyed. Others whispered their doubts in secret. Traders spoke of deals with humans that ended in unexpected ways. Humans always seemed to negotiate harder, learn faster, and adapt quicker than any other race. Soldiers who had faced humans once did not wish to face them again. Even slaves in distant colonies spread stories of human defiance. Tales carried like sparks from world to world. But none of these whispers reached the Supreme Speaker. Or if they did, he ignored them. To him, humans were still children. Dangerous children, perhaps, but children nonetheless. He believed the combined fleets of the Council would crush them with ease. Yet even as he prepared for war, the humans themselves were preparing too. On Earth, leaders gathered in secret chambers. Nations that had been enemies for centuries now spoke as one. For the first time in history, humanity stood united, not because they wanted conquest, but because survival demanded it. Old weapons were dusted off. New weapons were built. Soldiers trained harder than ever before. Scientists worked without sleep, creating technologies to match the alien threat. And among them, there was no fear. Instead, there was determination. "Let them come," said one human general, his eyes fixed on the stars. "They think we are weak. They think we will break, but we will not. We will fight in the skies, on the ground, in the shadows. We will make them regret this war." Back in the council chambers, the unease grew. A few brave counselors tried again to warn the others. "If we strike humanity," one said, "they will not surrender. They will fight until the last. And every blow we deal will only make them stronger. This war will not be easy. It will not be swift. It may be our undoing." But the Supreme Speaker silenced them with a wave of his hand. His voice was full of arrogance. "You speak out of fear. I speak with power. The humans will fall. And when they do, the galaxy will know that no one challenges the council." The chamber filled with forced applause. But in the eyes of many leaders there was doubt. For in their hearts, they remembered the same thing. Humans were not like other species. They did not accept defeat. They did not bend under pressure. And every time they were pushed to the edge, they became something more dangerous than before. The council had declared war, but in doing so, they had awoken something that could not be controlled. Not prey. Not weak, but predators, hunters, survivors. And soon the galaxy would learn why the word human was whispered with both respect and fear. The fleets of the council gathered in the void like a storm of fire. Thousands of ships, forged in the furnaces of 100 worlds, stretched across the stars. Their hulls glowed with power, their weapons charged, their banners bright with the mark of war. Alien citizens across the galaxy watched the broadcasts with awe. They were told this war would be swift, that humanity would be crushed within weeks, perhaps even days. Inside the flagship of the Supreme Fleet, the alien admirals stood in silence, gazing at the holomap of human space. A dozen red markers blinked, showing Earth and its colonies. The admirals spoke with confidence. "The plan is simple. Strike their outposts first. Burn their colonies. Leave Earth for last." "They will break quickly," another agreed. "Humans fight hard, yes, but they are scattered, divided. They cannot resist the full strength of the Council." The Supreme Admiral gave the command. "Then let the first strike begin." Across the void, the armadas moved. The first targets were small colonies, distant worlds where humans mined ore or grew crops. Alien fleets descended like predators. Cities burned. Ships were destroyed. Millions of human civilians were killed in hours. To the Council, it was a show of strength. To the galaxy, it was proof that the humans could not stand against the might of the Empire. But something strange happened. The humans did not surrender. They did not beg. On one mining world, when the alien fleet destroyed the defenses, the colonists themselves fought back with whatever they had. Farmers turned tractors into weapons. Engineers turned fuel lines into firebombs. Even as the aliens advanced, the humans fought them in the streets, refusing to kneel. Reports shocked the admirals. "Resistance continues, even after total defeat," one officer said. "It makes no sense." "Then erase them," the admiral replied coldly. "Leave nothing behind." And so more colonies were burned. Entire worlds turned to ash. The Council believed victory was close. But then their fleets began to encounter something new. At first, it was small. An alien ship ambushed in the darkness, destroyed without warning. Another fleet reported that human raiders struck their supply lines, stealing weapons and food before vanishing. An admiral growled in frustration. "Where do they come from? Where do they go? They strike and disappear like ghosts." The humans were adapting. Instead of fighting head-on, they scattered into the shadows of space. Small groups of ships would wait in asteroid fields or behind moons, then strike when the enemy least expected it. They never stayed to fight long. They hit hard, then vanished again, leaving behind wreckage and fear. The Council called them cowards. But in truth, the humans were learning. Every ambush taught them more about alien tactics. Every stolen weapon was studied and copied. Every loss only fueled their determination. On one battlefield, a single human ship, damaged and burning, refused to retreat. Surrounded by alien cruisers, it charged directly at the flagship, guns blazing until the moment it exploded. The aliens mocked the foolish sacrifice, but to the humans watching, it became a story, a symbol. Across Earth and the colonies, soldiers whispered about the ship that chose death over surrender. Meanwhile, back in the council chambers, reports grew worse. Our fleets are slowed. Our supply lines are under attack. Casualties rise with every engagement. This is impossible, shouted one warlord. They are few, we are many. How can they resist us? But the uneasy counselors remembered the warnings. Humans did not fight with numbers. They fought with cunning, with patience, with fire in their hearts. On Earth, the news of the first strike spread quickly. Cities mourned the fallen, but instead of despair, there was fury. Factories worked day and night. Soldiers volunteered by the millions. Every loss made humanity stronger. One general spoke to his people. They came to break us. They came to erase us. But all they have done is give us reason to fight. We will strike back. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And when we do, the galaxy will remember. The Council still celebrated their victories, blind to the danger. They believed the humans were finished. But in the silence between the stars, the humans were preparing. They were watching. They were waiting. And when the time came, they would strike back with a fury no empire could withstand. The first strike had begun. The galaxy thought it was the beginning of humanity's end, but in truth, it was the beginning of the Council's downfall. The war dragged on. What the Council had promised would be a swift campaign began to twist into something they had not expected. Instead of breaking, humanity hardened. Instead of scattering, they united. And instead of surrendering, they prepared for war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. On Earth, every factory thundered day and night. Old industries were transformed into weapons for survival. Civilian ships were refitted with armor and cannons. Scientists worked without rest, studying alien technology, finding weaknesses and bending it to human use. Nations that had once been rivals now stood side by side, their flags lowered, replaced with a single banner: the survival of humanity. The broadcast spoke one message to the people. They wanted our extinction. They will find only resistance. While alien fleets searched the skies, humans turned every loss into fuel for vengeance. Colonies that had fallen left behind survivors. Survivors became fighters. Fighters became teachers. And every day, humanity's armies grew sharper. The Council fleet still moved with power. They still burned cities, crushed defenses, and laughed at their victories. But slowly, the victories began to cost more. Fleets that once swept through space without resistance now returned with missing ships. Soldiers who mocked humanity's primitive weapons returned scarred or did not return at all. The first real shock came in the Vera system. Council fleet of 40 ships entered orbit around a human colony. They expected easy prey. Instead, they were met with resistance. Not from human warships, but from the colony itself. Hidden batteries rose from the ground, launching missiles into the sky. Civilian freighters emerged from the atmosphere, retrofitted into gunships. Even the colony's satellites had been armed, firing beams of energy and kinetic weapons against the fleet. The aliens laughed at first, until they realized the humans had predicted every move. Their formation was broken, their supply ships destroyed, their flagship crippled. Of the 40 ships that entered orbit, only 12 escaped. It was the first time in the war the Council truly tasted fear. The humans called it the Vera Stand. To the Council, it was a disaster. But to humanity, it was hope. The message spread through every colony and every ship. We can fight. We can win. After that, the counterattack began. Human fleets no longer hid in shadows. They struck boldly with precision and fury. Instead of waiting for the Council to come, they went hunting. Small strike groups appeared in the heart of alien space, targeting fuel depots, supply lines, and communication hubs. In one battle, human forces captured an alien weapons station, then used its defenses against the very fleet sent to reclaim it. The Council's leaders grew furious. "They are vermin," one roared. "We must exterminate them utterly." But extermination was no longer simple. Every time the Council attacked, humans had already prepared. Every trap the aliens set turned against them. Every weakness exploited only made the humans stronger. The reports grew darker. Our ships are falling to human hacking. Their weapons are crude, but they hit harder each time. Entire fleets vanish into ambushes. The Supreme Speaker still tried to dismiss the danger. They are few. Their victories are illusions. The Council cannot fall to apes. But inside the Council chambers, fear spread like poison. Even alien civilians began to doubt. Stories of human defiance spread faster than the Council could silence them. On some worlds, whispers grew. Perhaps the humans deserve to live. Perhaps they are not prey but predators. Meanwhile, humanity's unity grew stronger. On Earth, leaders addressed their people. They thought we would kneel. Instead, we rise. They thought we would break. Instead, we sharpen our blades. This war is not the end of humanity. It is the end of the Council. The humans did not claim territory. They did not enslave worlds. Their only purpose was survival, and survival made them unstoppable. Then came the battle that changed everything. In the Eridan Nebula, a Council fleet of 100 ships was ambushed by less than 20 human vessels. By all logic, it should have been a slaughter. Instead, the humans used the nebula itself, hiding in the gas clouds, striking from every angle. The Council ships fired blindly, destroying each other in the chaos. By the time the battle ended, more than 60 alien ships were gone. The humans lost only 3. The galaxy trembled. For the first time, it was not the humans who were hunted. It was the Council. And as the war turned, one message became clear. Humanity was not fighting for conquest. Humanity was fighting for survival. And a species fighting for survival could never be defeated. The Council had declared war, expecting an easy victory. But now, they began to understand the truth. This war would not end with humanity's destruction. It would end with the Council's. The Council had begun the war with laughter. They believed humanity would be nothing more than a brief campaign, a warning to the galaxy never to challenge their power. But now, years into the conflict, there was no laughter left. Reports filled the Council chambers like storms. Fleets destroyed, colonies lost, worlds rebelling. The banners of the Empire no longer inspired fear. Instead, whispers spread across the stars. The Council is weakening. The humans are winning. The Supreme Speaker still tried to hold his authority. Standing high above the gathered leaders, his voice thundered, "This is temporary. They are clever, yes. They are stubborn, yes. But they are still mortal. If we strike harder, faster, we will crush them before they spread further." But even as he spoke, the truth was clear. The Council was bleeding. The humans had found their rhythm. They no longer fought in desperation. They fought with purpose. Their fleets moved with precision, striking deep into Council space, tearing apart supply chains and communications. Where once they fought like shadows, now they fought like fire. Spreading faster than the Council could contain, one battle became legendary, the Siege of Maritek. The Council had fortified the planet with one of its strongest fleets. 100 warships orbited the world, armed with the deadliest weapons in their arsenal. It was a fortress meant to prove that humans could not breach their defenses. The humans attacked anyway. They came not with superior numbers, but with cunning. Human engineers had studied alien weapons for years, finding weaknesses the Council themselves had overlooked. At Maritek, they unleashed their new creation, viral codes that infiltrated alien ships, turning their own targeting systems against them. The battle began with explosions. Alien cruisers fired on each other, their systems hijacked by human command. Chaos erupted across the fleet as human ships swept through, striking only where it mattered most. Within hours, the Council's mighty fleet was shattered. Maritek fell, and with it the myth of Council invincibility. The galaxy could no longer deny it. Humans were not prey. They were predators. They were survivors. And now they were hunters. The Council panicked. Some leaders demanded peace. Others screamed for genocide. And still others whispered of abandoning the war entirely. For the first time, cracks appeared within the mighty empire. Alien worlds that had once worshipped the Council began to doubt. On Earth, the news of Maritek's fall sparked a wave of celebration. Soldiers cheered, citizens wept, and leaders stood proud. But beneath the joy, there was grim determination. Humanity knew this was not the end. It was only the turning point. One human commander broadcast a message across the stars. Her voice carried into every corner of the galaxy. You wanted war. You wanted extinction, but you underestimated us. We are not afraid. We are not broken. We are human, and we will fight until the last star burns out. To the Council, hear this. Your empire is already dying. We will see it fall. The message spread like wildfire. To the enslaved, it was hope. To the oppressed, it was courage. And to the Council, it was terror. Inside the grand hall of the Council, silence fell as the broadcast ended. For the first time, the Supreme Speaker's many eyes shifted nervously. His voice trembled as he spoke. They cannot win. They are only one species. But the chamber knew the truth. One species united fighting for survival could do what empires could not. The turning point had come. Humanity was no longer fighting for its life. Humanity was fighting for victory, and from that moment forward, the war no longer belonged to the Council. It belonged to the humans. The galaxy had changed. Where once the Council's fleets ruled the stars without challenge, now their power was broken. Defeat followed defeat, and every world they tried to hold slipped further from their grasp. Alien citizens no longer looked to the Council with awe. They looked with anger, with doubt, with rebellion. The promise of security was gone, and the shadow of humanity grew larger every day. Inside the Council chambers, the once proud leaders argued like frightened children. The grand hall that had once glowed with banners of unity now echoed with blame and fear. This war should have been over years ago, roared a reptilian warlord, slamming his claw against the table. You said they were weak, shrieked a feathered diplomat pointing at the Supreme Speaker. You said this would be swift. The speaker's voice cracked as he tried to regain control. Enough, we still have fleets. We still have weapons. If we strike Earth directly. But even before he finished, another counselor cut him off. Strike Earth? Do you not see? We struck their colonies, their people, their homes, and every time they only grew stronger. Strike Earth, and it will be the end of us all. The chamber fell into uneasy silence, for beyond the walls of the Council, the end was already coming. Human fleets, once scattered, now moved as a single force. Commanders who had learned from years of bitter struggle coordinated with precision, striking at the heart of the Council. They no longer fought only in shadows. They marched openly through alien space, tearing down symbols of empire wherever they found them. Then came the day humanity launched its boldest strike yet, the assault on the Council's capital world. The Council had never imagined such a thing. Their capital was a fortress, protected by fleets larger than entire star nations. Massive defense stations orbited the planet, bristling with weapons that could vaporize entire cities. To them, it was untouchable. But the humans came anyway. They arrived in silence, slipping past the outer defenses with tactics no alien had predicted. They struck at weak points, crippling the stations, tearing open holes in the shield grid. When the Council's fleet scrambled to respond, they found themselves outmaneuvered, their formations shattered by the precision of human strikes. On the surface, chaos reigned. Citizens of the Council's capital watched in horror as the invincible empire crumbled before their eyes. Riots broke out in the streets. Some fought against the humans, but others rose up against their own rulers, shouting that the war had brought nothing but death and ruin. The Council leaders retreated into their grand hall, their fortress of power. But even there, the sound of war echoed. Distant explosions, the thunder of weapons, the screams of their people. The Supreme Speaker stood tall, though his many eyes burned with fear. They will not take this chamber, he insisted. We are the Council. We are eternal. But as the doors trembled under the force of battle outside, the words sounded hollow. One counselor whispered, We were eternal. Until we chose this war. Moments later, the gates shattered. Human soldiers entered the chamber, their armor scarred, their weapons steady. They did not shout. They did not boast. They moved with quiet, unshakable resolve. The alien leaders shrank back, their arrogance gone. The Supreme Speaker stepped forward, his voice shaking but defiant. You cannot destroy us all. Even if you kill us, the Council will survive. We are too great to fall. A human commander met his gaze. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of every colony burned, every city destroyed. every life lost. No empire is too great to fall. You brought this war to us. You lit the fire, and now you will burn in it. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the council leaders understood what had happened. Not a war against a weak species, but the birth of a force they could never control. The fall of the council was not a single battle, but a chain of defeats, rebellions, and shattered pride. And now, in the heart of their grand hall, that fall was complete. The humans did not slaughter them. They did not burn the chamber to ash. Instead, they stripped the council of its power, leaving it broken, shattered, irrelevant. As the human soldiers lowered the banners of the council and raised their own, the galaxy watched in silence. The empire that had ruled for millennia was gone, and all because they had declared war on humanity. The council was no more. What had once been the most powerful empire in the galaxy now lay in ruins. Its fleets scattered, its worlds rebelling, its leaders broken and stripped of authority. But humanity did not claim the throne. They did not enslave the defeated. They did not burn the galaxy in vengeance. Instead, they left behind a warning. On the day the council finally collapsed, a human fleet broadcast a single message across every channel, every world, every star system that had once lived under the council's rule. Remember this war. Remember who began it. You thought humanity weak. You thought us fragile. But you forgot one thing: we endure. We survive. And when pushed to the edge, we rise. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never again think us prey. Humanity will endure, long after your empire is dust. The words echoed across the galaxy. On worlds that had suffered under the council's iron grip, cheers erupted. Species that had once cowered found new courage. Some rose up to claim their own freedom, inspired by humanity's defiance. Others swore alliances not out of fear, but out of respect. But for the former rulers of the council, the words were a death sentence. Their empire was gone, their power erased, their name remembered not as conquerors, but as fools who destroyed themselves. They had declared war on humanity, and in doing so had sown the seeds of their own extinction. The galaxy would never forget it. In the years that followed, humanity grew stronger. They rebuilt their colonies, forged new alliances, and carved a place for themselves among the stars, not as subjects, but as equals, as survivors. No one dared to threaten them again. No one dared to underestimate them. But the legacy of the war was more than victory. It was a lesson. To the galaxy, it was the day the council fell. To humanity, it was proof of what they had always known, that no matter the enemy, no matter the cost, no matter the darkness ahead, they would endure. And so when children on alien worlds asked their elders, "Why did the council fall?" the answer was always the same: because they declared war on the one species they should have feared the most. The stars themselves seemed to whisper it. Humanity is not prey. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is the storm.